Mark Brown has this great YouTube channel called Game Maker's Toolkit. It's really awesome. I've been following it for years and years, and he makes some of his own games, but he also just does a lot of analyzing of games and deep research into people who made awesome video games and talks about how they made them and the design decisions they made. He did an episode recently about where good ideas come from. And I found it really interesting. I'll link to it. I won't try to regurgitate the whole thing out here, but it was great, and it made me really start thinking about where did my ideas come from, and maybe more specifically, I started thinking about what state of mind was I in when a good idea struck me? Where was I physically? What was my body doing? What was I thinking about? Who was I with? What was going on? Because I want to kind of cultivate a life where I have more good ideas, and I want to kind of I want to sort of set myself up for success. You don't really get to choose like when a good idea hits you, but you could set yourself up for better or worse situations where that's more or less likely to happen. And so I've been thinking about that just for myself. And I looked back at kind of the past and tried to think through what were the contexts I was in when good ideas hit me. I started thinking about Colossi, which was really that I had started kind of working on brainstorming a game with my friend Walter about superheroes. It was this game that never even got prototyped, really. But I was trying to describe this idea that I had for it to my friend Mitch, and we were walking around. This is back when I lived in Indonesia, and I just kind of casually and in this relaxed way was like, here's kind of how I picture the combat system working. And I did such a poor job of explaining it that he kind of repeated it back to me. And in our sort of like easy going back and forth, I realized that the thing that he was saying, which was really a misinterpretation of what I was saying, because I was explaining a piece of it so badly, that his misinterpretation was actually more interesting than what I was saying. And it sort of like all of a sudden created this little explosion of ideas where I said, oh, it'd be really cool if there was like 3 different lanes and you didn't know which one was going to resolve first. And this is what became Colossi right there on my shelf. I was thinking about as I developed that, as I worked on that, there were a whole bunch of different ideas that came to light over the years of working on it. And I worked on it a lot during COVID. I lived in California, and I'd be kind of thinking about it and working on it and writing things and prototyping things. And then at night, I would, everything was shut down, and I would go and take these long, sometimes like more than an hour long walk, just me and my dog walking through the streets of Oakland late at night, no phone, just wandering. And I have so many good, vivid memories of great ideas striking me during those walks. I've had a lot of really good ideas sitting in church where like I'm just sort of relaxed, no phone. My brain is like processing other stuff, and ideas just show up. I think about the game I'm working on right now, Canticle. It's the working title. I don't know if it'll be a real title, but I had read this novel, and I was out on a walk, relaxed, no phone, and my brain just started like kind of chewing on this novel that I was reading, and thought, oh, there's a game mechanism in there. So I guess one of the most obvious ones that I could point to, one of the most obvious things about like how do I set myself up for success here, is like go on walks. I mentioned this to my wife Lindsay, and she was like, "Oh man, our dog is going to be thrilled to hear this. That this is such a source of creative output because she'll just get to go on walks all the time." And I do. I go on a lot of walks, and I've been trying to leave my phone at home more, because that's the other thing that I've noticed about it is that I sat down and wrote down like every time I can remember having a good idea. And in every example, it's like I didn't have my phone in my hand. I wasn't looking at a screen. I wasn't scrolling. I guess actually, to be fair, there have been times where I have had a good idea while watching like a movie or a longer form YouTube video that's about games. But it's very, very different from the posture of like scrolling passively, being like, hey, just like feed me dopamine hits, feed me entertainment. That is not really a creative posture. So being out walking, and I also just noticed how much of it is like I was really relaxed. I wasn't there's times where I sit down and I really say like I need to go solve this problem in my game, and that is a thing that you just have to do sometimes, and sometimes good ideas do come out of that. But for a lot of these, where that feeling where a lightning bolt comes and just like strikes you out of nowhere, I'm like, I was like really relaxed. I had my mind on something else. I was not scrolling. I was not striving. I was like out in the world experiencing things. The other thing that stands out to me about it is that uh, it's not as if I had sort of like a blank or empty mind during these moments. I had raw material to work with, right? Like I was inspired by a novel. I was inspired by a real life experience. I was inspired by sort of brainstorming with another person. I was inspired by watching a good the basketball game all came because I was watching LeBron James uh, drawing, charts on boy, I'm really outing myself as a non-actual basketball player. And they have a little half court whiteboard where you can draw X's and O's. He was like drawing up plays, and I was watching that. I was like, oh, that's like a board game. So I think I think for those with, eyes to see and ears to hear, there's games everywhere, right? I think probably in the same way that like if you are a visual artist, you might look around at the world and see light and color and shadow and be like, hey, there's like paintings and photographs all over the world just like waiting to be taken, waiting to be portrayed. Um, I feel that way about games because that's what I do. That's my main creative output. And so as I start just having more real life experiences, as I watch people talk about, here's how my job works, here's how basketball works, here's how I told that ridiculous story about this game that I actually think I'm going to finish now, which is a game about this guy called it Morning Routine, and it was all about the tension that was like I was in a bathroom that had been wrecked by somebody else, and I thought I'm not going to sit here and clean up somebody else's mess. But also, if I leave right now and somebody's waiting at the door for me, they're going to think I made this mess. And like, this crazy, like trade-off social game dynamic. And I was like, this feels like a game. Like this could be a game mechanism. Why not? So it's like, as you start thinking and seeing the world in game design problems, you start seeing these kinds of tensions all over the place. You start seeing these trade-offs and these interesting mechanisms, these systems. You look at like supply chain, you start thinking about like, how did these groceries get to this grocery store and into my home? And you're like, oh, wow, that's a big complex system that could be a game. And in fact, yep, there's a bunch of supply chain games out there. So I think like you do want to kind of like be in the world. You want to be consuming films and novels and learning about how things work, learning about how systems work. But then also just for myself, it's like at some point, it's like put the phone down, put the screens away, go on a walk without an agenda and allow my mind, it almost feels like my subconscious starts just like chewing on it and then eventually comes back with something like, hey, here's an interesting little nugget. And those turn into fully fledged games. So I say all of this not to tell anyone else what to do, but just for myself, it's a good reminder that I need to be doing more sort of like planned, unstructured time, I guess. It's like, I don't want to go into walks with agendas, but I do want to plan to have some time to let my brain do this. And to have some like interesting source material. If the only source material is like my job, that's going to be kind of a bummer. But if there's a lot to chew on with like good games, good experiences with other people, going to see ruins in Paris and Belgium, if I can fill my mind with these things and then give it some space to think, for me, that's where all the good ideas come from. So I'd like to do a lot more of that in 2026.